Hey guys, tonight we're sailing back through time, not to a king's court or grand battlefield, but to something far grittier and fishier. Tonight, we'll slip into the soggy boots of a Viking-era fisherman, somewhere along the rugged coast of what's now Norway. You crouch at the edge of a misty fjord, muscles aching, breath fogging in the cold air. You grip a net that smells older than you feel and squint toward a horizon that offers fish, fortune, or a very cold, wet funeral. And yeah, spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. Between the storms, the fish hooks, and that guy who's convinced you're after his wife, you're not. This is not the sleepy fishing trip your uncle took you on. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Now, the first thing that hits you is the smell. Salt, smoke, fish, wet wool, all braided together in a punch that says, "Welcome to the fjord." You've just stepped off a narrow, creaking boat that makes your modern idea of rustic look like a space shuttle. The village crouches like a stubborn barnacle on the side of the mountain. Low wooden houses with turf roofs, surrounded by black rocks slick with seawater and moss. A man with a tangled beard and a permanent squint tosses you a fur-lined hood. "Try not to die," he mutters, comforting. You're in a fishing settlement of perhaps 50 souls, give or take a few who wandered off during a snowstorm last winter. It's the early 10th century. Most of the year, life revolves around the sea. When the water isn't frozen, it's a lifeline. When it is, well, that's why there's an axe in every household and fish buried under the snow like weird, smelly emergency rations. Your feet crunch on frozen gravel as you pass the first few houses. Every surface is raw timber, battered by wind. People don't smile much here. They nod. That's as warm as it gets until they trust you. Children run past you barefoot, shrieking in joy over something that might be a fish's spine or a particularly charming stick. A one-eyed woman spits a long stream of something onto a fire and invites you to sleep next to her goats, if you snore too loud. You politely pretend not to hear. There's no village square here, just a communal space near the drying racks. Hundreds of fish hang like silver tongues, glistening in the pale sun. Their smell is eternal. You'll never unsmell it. Congratulations. A broader man with sea-bleached hair waves you over. He's the one they call Torkel the Haddock, for reasons you'll discover later and wish you hadn't. He assigns you to a boat, a hut, and a job. Description that includes fishing, gutting, rowing, fixing nets, and not complaining about back pain. "Don't worry," he says. "First few weeks are the worst. After that, it's mostly just survival." Vikings were not just warriors. In fact, most were farmers, blacksmiths, or, like you, fishers. Raiding was seasonal. Fishing, that was daily life, essential. The dried fish from this fjord might end up in trade markets in Dublin, Novgorod, or the Hebrides. It's weird to think of it, but your catch could outlive you. Inside your assigned hut, the scent somehow intensifies. The space is shared with two brothers who argue over whether a seal's flipper makes a good pillow. A third bed is yours. It's mostly hay. A rat looks up at you, disapproves, and wanders off. You try to adjust. You crouch near the fire pit in the centre of the room. There's no chimney, just a hole in the ceiling. Smoke curls upward, then downward again. Because the wind has shifted. Your eyes water. You blink through it, watching someone carve a rune into a bit of driftwood, muttering under their breath. Historians still argue whether runes were more mystical than practical. Some were names, some were warnings, some were magical charms. This one looks like a squiggly fish. Could be protection. Could be a menu. Welcome to mystery. You wander outside again, rubbing your eyes, and find yourself staring at the edge of the world. The fjord stretches long and narrow, ringed by cliffs, sharp as axe blades. A waterfall spills in from some hidden glacier, echoing across the water. The surface is calm today, deceptively. "Looks pretty," says a girl nearby, about 12, and wearing a wolf pelt too big for her. "That means it'll try to kill you tomorrow." Your heart sinks a little, but she grins, toothy and bright, and offers you a carved wooden fishhook. "From whalebone," she says proudly. "Caught 3 trout, a gull, and my cousin's toe." Quirky? Absolutely. Historically accurate? Turns out yes. Bone hooks, especially from whale or reindeer, were common before metal was widespread. Resourcefulness wasn't optional, it was survival. You pocket the hook, feeling like maybe, just maybe, you've been slightly accepted. That night, you lie on your hay-stuffed bedding, listening to the wind creak the walls, and someone wheeze into a snore. The sea smells stronger at night, like it's pressing against the walls, breathing in time with your dreams. You drift off knowing that in the morning, you'll be expected to row, fish, and pull your weight like everyone else. No mercy for newbies, no tutorials, just cold water and calloused hands waiting for you. Outside, somewhere in the dark, a gull screams. The goat is watching you again. This is the 3rd time tonight. It's nudged open the hut's warped wooden door, stepped halfway inside, stared at you in judgmental silence, and backed out like it's reconsidering your worthiness as a roommate. You're starting to take it personally. Your new home is rustic, that's the polite way to put it. A single-room timber hut covered in turf, which means the roof is basically moss and dirt. And yes, something small and suspiciously clawed is definitely living up there. The walls are thick planks, darkened with smoke and streaked with years of greasy handprints. There's a permanent dampness that clings to everything like a bad decision. You're never truly dry, just varying degrees of not wet, but it's yours. Sort of. You were handed the space by Torkel the haddock, who probably regrets it now, that he's realised you don't know how to gut a fish without slicing your own thumb. Your new roommates, Eric and Sten, are a pair of middle-aged brothers who look like they were born with salt in their veins and bad backs. Eric speaks in monosyllables. Sten doesn't speak at all, just grunts and gestures with spoons. Neither seems thrilled to be bunking with someone who flinches at every seagull shriek. Still, they give you space, roughly the corner nearest the door, which you suspect is also the coldest. You've got a wool blanket, coarse, full of twigs, a lumpy straw mattress, and a personal stash of smoked fish wrapped in birch bark. It's not much, but it's a start. There's no furniture to speak of. People squat, sit on crates, or lean against whatever isn't occupied by a goat. The fire pit in the centre provides heat and light, assuming the smoke doesn't blow directly into your face, which it does. Constantly. You step outside just as the first orange streaks of dawn start to split the sky. The air is knife cold. Your breath fogs out in a thick cloud. The fjord gleams below, deceptively still, like a giant slab of polished obsidian. This place might be beautiful if it weren't trying so hard to kill you. Your tasks today are simple in theory. Gather driftwood, patch the hole in your roof where the stars leak in, and start prepping your gear. You've been told to get your space in order, which loosely translates to stop living like a clueless outsider. So you do. Kind of. You start with the roof. Clambering onto it isn't too difficult. There's a half-buried ladder nearby, and one of the neighbour kids tosses you a rope, just in case you fall, and we have to pull you out of the seaweed. Comforting. Once up top, you get a good view of the village. Maybe 20 huts clustered along the shore, smoke curling from rooftops, people already moving, carrying baskets, sharpening tools, scolding children. At the edge of the fjord, a row of longboats bobs gently, their carved prows snarling toward the sea. Most are fishing vessels, not warships, though you wouldn't want to argue the point while standing in front of one. Viking ships were famously shallow drafted, allowing them to navigate narrow inlets and even rivers. That flexibility made them deadly in raids, but ideal for fishing too. Quick to launch, quick to return. You patch the roof with sodden mud, muttering to yourself, You have no idea what you're doing, but that seems to be the theme of the week. Eventually, you climb back down, brush the moss from your tunic, and return to the hut. Inside, the fire's been restoked. Sten offers you a crust of bread. Eirik nods slightly. Progress. You spend the afternoon arranging your tiny corner of the hut. You carve a little fish symbol into a piece of driftwood and hang it near your bed, a local charm supposedly to ward off bad dreams and boat rot. Historians still argue whether these charms were religious offerings, personal superstitions, or just ancient Pinterest projects gone sea mad. For dinner there's fish stew again. Always fish stew. You try not to ask what else is in it. Night falls early in this season. Darkness slinks over the village like spilled ink. The cold deepens. Inside the hut, bodies huddle close. The fire crackles. Someone hums a lullaby that sounds suspiciously like a battle chant. You lie awake for a while, listening to the wind sigh through the walls. There's something comforting about the simplicity. No messages, no deadlines, just fish, sleep, and trying not to freeze to death. It's terrifying and peaceful all at once. A quirky note. Someone earlier mentioned the village's guardian spirit lives in a whale skull buried under the hearth. You laugh it off, until Eirik casually drops a fisheye into the fire and mutters a few words you don't recognise. The room goes quiet for a moment. Even the goat outside stops moving. You don't ask. Eventually you drift off, bundled under your itchy blanket, your fingers smelling faintly of smoke and cod. You dream of deep water, longboats gliding over waves, and a fish with glowing eyes whispering secrets in a language you almost understand. Tomorrow you rise with the tide. It's not even light out yet, and someone's already yelling your name. Sort of. It's more like a slurred approximation of your name mixed with a command to get your lazy bones out before the gulls take your soul. Classic Viking motivation. You groan, roll off your straw bedding, and land hard on the cold-packed dirt. The fire's gone out. Your blanket is damp. Eirik is already pulling on his fur-lined boots, grumbling something about sea ghosts in the net again. Sten is gnawing on dried fish and tying a rope around a bundle of nets like it owes him money. You, meanwhile, are blinking through sleep and smoke, trying to remember which end of your tunic goes in front. Outside, the fjord is still wrapped in pre-dawn mist. The sky hangs low and grey, like it's not sure whether it wants to snow, rain, or just collapse entirely. You pull on your cloak, which smells exactly how you'd expect after sleeping next to two unwashed men and one confused goat for several nights. Then breakfast. It's exactly what you feared. Cold flatbread, hard cheese, and a strip of dried fish that could double as a weapon. No porridge, no coffee, no mercy. You chew slowly, trying not to chip a tooth. Across from you, a kid with a runny nose stares while sucking on a smoked herring like it's a popsicle. "First time rowing?" he asks. You nod. He grins like he knows something you don't, which he does. Rowing isn't just hard, it's humiliating. Your arms ache within the first few minutes. The oar feels like it weighs as much as a moose. The cold wind slaps your face like a disappointed ancestor. Every stroke splashes icy water onto your lap, and by the 10th pull, your hands are raw. The boat is long and narrow, built for slicing through water like a blade. Torkel the haddock is at the stern, barking orders and steering with a tiller that looks like it's seen one too many tempers. Beside you, Eirik rows like his life depends on it, which it probably does. Fishing here isn't a hobby, it's survival. No fish, no food, no reason for the village to keep you around. You pass other boats in the mist, silent shapes drifting over the water. Some are already hauling nets, others baiting lines. A few have sails patched with fur and hide, but most rely on pure muscle. "Don't look back," Torkel snaps. "Row like the sea wants to eat you." It probably does. It has that vibe. Here you reach the deeper part of the fjord just as the sun rises, though rises might be generous. It more or less glows faintly through the cloud cover, like a candle behind a very dirty window. Still, it's enough to work by. You cast your first net, following Eirik's lead. The process is precise, almost ritualistic. The weight stones go first, then the floaters. You lower it carefully, using a rope wrapped in sealskin to keep your grip. Then comes the waiting. Not peaceful, meditative waiting. Cold, foot-numbing. My fingers are turning blue waiting. You sit in silence, staring at the water. It's so dark you can't tell where it ends, and the sky begins. Just ripples. Occasionally, a seal pops its head up, stares at you like you're an idiot, and disappears again. You want to ask Torkel something, anything, but he raises one eyebrow in warning. Fish don't like chatter, he growls. Neither do I. And when the net finally comes up, it's heavy. You and Eirik strain against the weight, pulling hand over hand, slipping and grunting. The boat rocks dangerously. One wrong move, and you're in the drink. Hypothermia in minutes. Yay. But finally, the net breaks the surface, and it's alive. Herring, mostly. Silver flashes, a couple cod, one flapping with surprising rage. There's also a half-eaten eel and a very angry crab that launches itself at your boot. Eirik laughs for the first time. You got the crab blessing, he says, wiping his nose. Means your fingers won't fall off. Is that a real thing? Historians still argue whether Viking fishing superstitions were just jokes to haze new crew or genuine belief systems. Either way, you're grateful for the glove Sten tosses at you before the crab can exact vengeance. By mid-morning, you've cast 3 more nets. Your arms are dead. Your back is plotting a rebellion. But you've got a respectable pile of fish at your feet, and no one's yelling at you. Much. You break for a snack, more dried fish, and take a moment to admire the scenery. The cliffs above the fjord rise like jagged teeth. Tiny waterfalls thread through them. Seabirds wheel overhead, shrieking like tiny sky demons. It's hauntingly beautiful. Torkel points toward a rocky outcrop. See that? He says. Last year Frode saw a draga there. Said it waved at him. You blink. A draga. Sea ghost, Eirik says casually. Dead sailor. Comes up to drag you under. You nod slowly and stare harder at the rocks. Nothing. Just mist, but still. Quirky fact, Vikings believed in all sorts of sea spirits, including draga, undead creatures that haunted grave mounds and ships. Some sagas say they glowed in the dark and could control storms. So, pleasant. You row back in silence, thinking about that. The return trip is no easier. Every pull of the oar makes your shoulders scream. But eventually, the village appears again. Rising from the mist, smoke from the huts curls upward. Kids run to greet the returning boats. Someone shouts about a seal carcass drifting near the rocks, salvageable maybe. Your boat glides into the shallows. Eirik jumps out and drags it onto the pebbled shore. You flop out after him, gracelessly. Torkel claps you on the back. You didn't drown. That's a good. Inadistartis. Out back at your hut, you collapse onto your bedding. Your fingers are stiff. Your tunic is damp. You smell like fish and failure. But still, you did it. You rowed. You hauled. You didn't die. Small victories. Outside, the fjord exhales mist and memory. You close your eyes and dream of nets full of silver, boats gliding through black water, and a pale shape waving at you from the rocks. The next morning begins with your right shoulder, staging a full-blown protest. Every muscle aches like it's auditioning for a Viking soap opera titled Rowing Ruined My Spine. You groan, rotate your arm a little, and then stop immediately. Mistake. Big mistake. Sten notices your discomfort and helpfully slaps you on the back. Good row, he grunts, which in Sten speak probably means you didn't puke or tip us over. High praise, but there's no time to nurse your wounds. Today's another fishing day, which is every day basically, and this time you'll be doing more than just rowing. You're going to learn the fine art of untangling a net full of seaweed, fish spines, and what might be the skeletal remains of someone's shoe. You trudge down to the boats, boots squelching in mud. The tide is out. The air smells like brine, kelp, and something vaguely sinister, probably the fermented fish pile behind the smokehouse. The boats, all ready, prepped. Nets coiled, gear loaded, bait packed. Torkel the haddock gives you a nod, and a barely perceptible thumbs up. It's the Viking version of a handshake, and a motivational speech rolled into one. "Time to row," he mutters. "No wind. Sea's dead as a cow's prayer." You have no idea what that means, but it sounds ominous. Back out on the fjord, the silence is eerie. No waves, no birds. Just the soft clunk of oars hitting the water. Torkel steers you to a new spot, further down the coast this time, near a patch of kelp beds. Eirik squints into the distance and makes a low sound in his throat. "Herring school," he says. You don't see anything, but apparently your crew does. Tiny silver flashes just below the surface, so fast and faint, it's like the water's winking at you. Net time. You help lower the gear, more smoothly this time. The weight stones sink fast, tugging the net downward. Eirik uses a long stick to guide it into place. You watch the floaters bob on the surface like a trail of breadcrumbs, gently swaying in rhythm with the fjord's breathing. Now comes the hard part, pulling it up. You grip the rope and haul. It's wet, slippery, and alive. The net rises inch by inch, heavy with resistance. You brace your boots, lean your weight back, and pull until your shoulders scream again. Finally it breaks the surface, overflowing with fish. Herring mostly, but a few cod, and one massive flatfish that slaps you in the face like it's trying to duel you. Torkel cackles. "Congratulations! The fish thinks you're ugly," you gasp, wiping fish slime off your cheek. Once the catch is in, the real fun begins. You're handed a curved iron blade called a lupar. It's for gutting the fish. Swift, brutal, and efficient. Eirik demonstrates. One slice from gill to gut. Scoop out the innards, toss it into the water for the gulls. Repeat. Dozens of times. You try. The first herring slips from your hands like a wet soap bar and smacks into your lap. The second you cut too shallow. The third, well, you find a tiny crab living inside it and scream just a little. Eirik doesn't laugh, but he smiles. That's progress. You find your rhythm eventually. Slice, scoop, toss. Your hands are soaked in brine and fish blood. Your nose burns from the smell, and your back is aching anew, but you're doing it. One fish at a time. Then a gull swoops down and steals half a cod right out of the boat. "Hey," you shout, but it's long gone, leaving nothing but a sassy squawk in its wake. Torkel nods solemnly. That's old Wingface, been stealing since Harold Finehair was a baby. Historical fact break, King Harold Finehair ruled in the late 9th century and was supposedly the first to unify Norway. Whether he actually existed as described is still debated, but locals like to use his name as a timestamp. Kind of like saying, since Lincoln was in diapers. Once the catch is cleaned, you row back. And by you, we mean mostly you, since the others decide this is a good time to nap in shifts. Stain snores. Torkel hums something off-key. Eirik chews on dried berries and offers you exactly one, as if that will cure your exhaustion. You eat it anyway. The sky is clearer now. Patches of sunlight break through the clouds, casting golden stripes on the fjord. In the distance you see another fishing boat waving a blue cloth, a signal for help or trade. Torkel grunts and waves back but keeps rowing. Probably just out of bait, he says, or lost a finger, or fighting off Draga. Who knows? Back ashore, you help haul the fish to the racks. They're massive wooden frames set up outside the village, where fish are strung by the tail and left to dry in the open air. The gulls circle overhead, like grim accountants, waiting for you to blink. You also help prepare some fish for smoking. This means lugging heavy buckets to the smokehouse and handing them off to someone whose entire personality is grumpy with soot. He opens the door, just long enough for you to get a lungful of birch smoke, nods once, and slams it again. You cough for 10 minutes. Quirky historical tidbit. Viking smokehouses sometimes use sheep dung as fuel. It burns slowly, and yes, it smelled exactly as you'd expect. Thankfully, your village seems to prefer birch bark and alder branches, slightly less horrifying. Well, that evening, you soak your hands in cold water, then rub them with goose fat, a trick passed on by a wiry old woman who says she once punched a walrus. You believe her. She has the look. Eirik is carving something again. You peek over his shoulder. It's a tiny boat with a runic inscription on the sail. The letters twist and curl like sea serpents. Protection for the voyage, he mutters. Do they work? He shrugs. Sometimes they just make you feel like someone's watching out for you. Scholars still argue whether runes were primarily magical or mundane. Were they letters, spells, warnings? Truth is, probably all of the above. Viking culture wasn't one note. It was layered like fish scales. You fall asleep fast tonight. Muscles sore, hands stained. But your body feels used, like it finally understands what it's supposed to be doing. As you drift off, you hear the wind pick up outside. A gull cries, someone curses softly, and you dream of silver flashes beneath dark waves, and a massive flatfish slapping you again. Rude, you wake to the smell of fish and the sound of laughter. And not the nice, wholesome kind of laughter either. No, this is the kind of laughter that says someone just fell in a barrel of fish guts and it wasn't me. You stagger out of your hut and follow the noise. At the edge of the drying racks, a cluster of villagers are watching a boy, maybe 12, maybe 16. It's hard to tell with all the layers of grime, climbing out of a barrel covered head to toe in what looks like fish slime, seaweed, and a very surprised eel. Someone hands him a herring like it's a consolation prize. He bows dramatically. Morning entertainment, check. You chew on a strip of dried cod while the village buzzes to life. The sea is calm again, but today isn't for rowing. Torkel says it's a shore day, meaning time to clean, prep, and sort fish for trade. Your job is to sort the day's catch by type and size, which sounds easy until you realise you don't know a herring from a haddock, and the fish keep slapping you in the face like little slippery critics. Eirik sighs and lines up 3 fish in the mud. Herring, he says, tapping the smallest. Cod, the big one with the angry mouth. And that's an eel. Don't poke it. You poke it. It wriggles and snaps at you. Still alive, Eirik says without looking. You nod like you totally knew that and weren't about to scream. As the sun climbs, the village settles into its routine. Kids help carry buckets, women braid ropes and mend nets. Elderly men sharpen knives and tell exaggerated stories about fish they once caught. So big it dragged 2 boats and a goat before snapping the line. You laugh, and one of them stares you down and says, "The goat survived." So that's comforting. You take a break near the racks and chew on a hunk of soft bread with lard smeared across the top. It's greasy, salty, and surprisingly delicious. A girl your age sits beside you and offers a swig from a clay flask. You take it without thinking. Instant regret. It burns like someone set fire to your lungs and added herbs just to be spiteful. You cough until your eyes water. Birch sap mead, she says, smirking. Good for coughs. Also causes them, you wheeze. Midday brings stories. As the fish are cleaned, people start swapping tales, part tradition, part boredom, part attempt to keep the kids from wandering off and poking jellyfish again. You listen, trying to keep your knife hand steady, while you gut a particularly smug-looking cod. Someone tells the tale of the sea serpent that supposedly lives at the bottom of the fjord. As long as a longhouse, they claim, eyes like burning coals, eats boats whole. Is it real, you ask? Maybe, Torkel shrugs. Frode swears he saw it, said it winked at him. Frode also says he wrestled a bear. Exactly. Can't trust a man who survives that many near deaths. There are sea monster stories in Norse tradition, like the Hafgufa, a legendary beast said to be mistaken for an island until it sinks and devours ships. Some scholars think it was inspired by whale sightings, others think it was metaphorical, but out here, with only a thin boat between you and the abyss, metaphor becomes uncomfortably literal. Later, as you clean fish guts from your fingernails, you're sent to help mend one of the massive seine nets. It's frayed and full of seaweed, with barnacles clinging to the weights. The net is longer than your hut, and your fingers quickly go numb, threading the cord through torn sections. An older woman named Astrid shows you how to tie the knots. Her hands are gnarled like driftwood, but her movements are fast and sure. Fingers remember, she says. Even when the mind forgets, you glance down at her hands, then your own, blistered, swollen, but learning. Ever catch anything weird in these, you ask? She grins. Once caught a man. What? A raider, washed up with the tide, snagged in the net, half alive. You wait for more? She shrugs. We smoked him. Wait, what? She laughs. Fish! We smoked fish. We gave him stew and sent him on his way. Your heart resumes beating. Barely. As the day winds down, the shore is littered with scales, bones, and gull feathers. The sun dips behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the fjord. You help drag a cartload of salted fish into the storehouse, a low stone-walled building half sunk into the earth to keep things cool. Inside it smells like preservation, desperation, and faintly like mouldy cheese. You stack the fish into neat rows, side by side, like sleeping silver warriors, each one a token of survival, each one tradable for something precious. Wool, iron, grain, even stories. Because fish weren't just food, they were currency. Dried cod, known later as stockfish, became one of the Viking world's most valuable exports. So next time you think just a fish, remember, this slimy little guy might buy you a new axe or a winter's worth of firewood. You finish your work as stars prick through the darkening sky. The cold settles in again, curling through your clothes like an uninvited guest. Your hands are raw, your back hurts, but your gut is full, and you've earned your place for another day. At that night in the hut, Eric tells a story about a fisherman who caught a golden fish that spoke prophecies and demanded to be returned. The fisherman refused. Bad things happened. Did he die, you ask, Number. The fish took his voice. He became the first mute lawkeeper. You glance at Sten. He raises an eyebrow. You decide not to ask. As the fire burns low, you curl into your bedding and fall asleep to the rhythmic sound of the fjord lapping at the shore, like a giant sleeping thing breathing through the dark. And in your dreams, you see the sea serpent again. This time, it's smiling. By now your fingers are starting to look different, calloused, split in places, perpetually smelling like low tide. Honestly, you're not sure if you're becoming a fisherman or just slowly transforming into a sea creature yourself. But this morning, instead of loading into the boat, you're handed a woven basket and a pair of crude leather gloves that look like they've already survived 3 minor tragedies. Net repair day, says Eric, with all the enthusiasm of someone being sent to do long division during a feast. You sigh. Your arms are grateful not to be rowing, but your spine has a bad feeling about what's coming. At the net repair area is really just a flat stretch of ground near the shore, dotted with wooden stakes, pegs and lines crisscrossing like spider webs after a thunderstorm. Dozens of nets hang between them, some shredded, some just sagging, all in need of love and goose-fat-fingered attention. You're not alone. Several villagers are already at work. An elderly woman nods as you approach, revealing a missing front tooth and a grin that suggests she knows far more about you than you'd like. This one's yours, she says, pointing to a net with what looks like a vulture bite taken out of the centre. You kneel beside it, open your basket of repair tools, needles made of bone, spools of twine, and a knife, and begin the delicate process of patching, knotting, and pretending you aren't making things worse. Spoiler, you are. The thread tangles. The net folds in on itself. At one point, you accidentally stitch your own tunic to the mesh. By the time Eric wanders over to check your progress, you're halfway cocooned in it. He stares, then deadpans. Planning to catch yourself? And you make slow progress. But gradually, your fingers learn the rhythm. Pull tight, knot, double loop. It's weirdly meditative. Birds wheel overhead. Someone plays a flute in the distance, off-key but earnestly. The fjords sparkles beneath the sun, and you remember that not everything here is hardship. Some of it is quiet. Then someone screams. You jump, nearly stabbing your palm. The source? A younger boy just dropped a net on a crab nest. A dozen furious pincers are now pursuing him through the shallows. The rest of the villagers cheer him on, like it's a sport. Sten, watching nearby, chuckles. An actual chuckle. You're shaken to your core. Or when the nets are done, or at least passable, you're told to visit the bone setter. Now this is less about injury and more about maintenance. Everyone's back gets wrecked eventually, and the village has someone whose job it is to keep bones from turning to mush. Her name is Solve, and she lives in the last hut before the cliff. You walk in, ducking your head under a bundle of drying herbs, and stop short. Solve looks like she was carved from granite and then scolded into being human. She's maybe 60, but you wouldn't bet money on it. Her eyes are sharp. Her fingers are like tree roots. Sit, she commands, pointing at a low stool covered in fur and bits of straw. You obey. What follows is less massage and more controlled violence. She pushes, prods, twists. Your back cracks in 6 places. At one point, she uses her foot to hold your shoulder down while realigning your spine. You make a noise you didn't know humans could make. You'll sleep better, she promises, handing you a jar of something pungent. Rub this on your joints. You sniff it and instantly regret that decision. What's in it? Mostly goose fat and willow bark. Mostly? She grins. And just a little fermented herring oil. Delightful. And back in the hut, you smear the salve on your aching shoulders. It's greasy, cold, and smells like a fish funeral. But after a while, the ache fades. Sort of. Eirik returns and tosses you a wooden cup filled with warm water and something floating in it. What's this? Drink. Is it going to help or kill me? Both. You drink it. It tastes like boiled bark and regret. Or that evening, the village gathers near the longhouse for a shared meal. It's not quite a feast, but it's more lively than the usual fish and flatbread affair. There's roasted seabird, turnip stew, and a rare treat, honey sweetened oats. Everyone is sitting in a wide circle around a fire pit, passing bowls and swapping stories. You're sandwiched between a boy who keeps sneezing and a woman whittling a fish with surprising intensity. Torkel stands and raises a mug. To the nets that catch, the bones that don't break, and the strangers who stop smelling like strangers. Everyone laughs, you blush, and then out of nowhere, someone starts singing. It's a low rhythmic chant. A fishing song, you're told, passed down for generations, sung to call the fish and ward off storms. You hum along, catching the tune but not the words. One verse stands out. Beneath the waves the old ones sleep, their bones in nets, their secrets deep. It sticks in your head long after the singing fades. You wander outside after the meal, full and warm for once. The stars are blazing now, unmarred by city lights or anything modern, just ancient constellations spinning above a sleeping sea. You think about Solveig's hands, the cracked nets, the laughter, the weirdness of being grateful for goose fat. Historians still argue whether Viking society gave enough value to daily labourers like fishermen and net makers. Sagas tend to focus on kings and warriors. But here, in the quiet rhythm of work and wounds and woven twine, you begin to understand. These people mattered too. Without them, Nothing else works. You sit for a moment on a rock at the edge of the fjord, staring into the water. It reflects the sky perfectly, and for a moment you're not sure where the sea ends and the stars begin. The smokehouse is alive, not with people necessarily, but with sound, heat, and a swirling chaos of smells that immediately makes your eyes sting and your nose wonder what it ever did to deserve this. This morning's assignment is deceptively simple. Help preserve the fish. You arrive with your usual level of optimism, which by now should be 0, and are immediately handed a bundle of birch bark, a dripping bundle of cod, and an old wool rag that, according to the woman beside you, is your official smokehouse mask. It doesn't help. It actually might make things worse. Keep your mouth shut, she advises cheerfully, or the smoke will season your teeth. The smokehouse itself is a low, dark hut built entirely for function, not comfort. The floor is dirt, the walls are blackened logs, and the ceiling practically non-existent. The smoke hangs in thick layers, seeping into your hair, your tunic, and the very fabric of your soul. There's a fire pit in the centre, smouldering quietly. No roaring flames here, just glowing coals and slow-burning wood. Above it, wooden racks are stacked with fish in various stages of becoming edible jerky. Some hang by their tails, others lie on bark-covered shelves, all of them slowly turning leathery and ghost pale. Your job is to add to the chaos. 5 feet you help prepare the fish. That means more gutting, your old friend, followed by salting. Thick grains of sea salt are rubbed into every nook and cranny of the fish, drawing out moisture and killing off the worst of the bacteria. Or, most of it. Let's not get cocky. Then comes the hanging. You loop each fish by the tail, tie it with twine, and hoist it up onto the racks. There's a technique to it. Too tight, and the fish splits. Too loose, and it falls into the fire and becomes very smoked. One fish slips from your grasp and smacks the ground with a wet thwop. The woman next to you, whose name might be Runa, or possibly just Hey, gives you a look. First one's free, she says. Next one costs a toe. You hope she's joking. Mostly. And the smokehouse has a rhythm. Every so often you open a small hatch in the roof to let some of the smoke out and fresh air in. Then you close it again to trap the heat. You stoke the fire with more alder branches, preferred for their mild flavour, and occasionally toss in a few herbs or bits of bark. Not for taste necessarily, just tradition. Some say it keeps the evil spirits out. Quirky historical tidbit. Some Viking villages burned juniper or even dried seaweed in their smokehouses. Not for the fish, but to confuse spirits that might try to spoil the meat. You're not entirely convinced it works, but the smell is oddly comforting, like burnt toast with ambition. By midday, your skin is coated in a fine layer of salt and ash. You smell like the inside of a barbecue pit. Your eyes are red. Your nose has given up completely. You stagger outside, blinking against the sudden brightness. The fjord glints like a blade. You inhale deeply and instantly regret it. Even fresh air now smells like fish. Torkel walks past, sniffs the air and nods. Smells like winter won't kill us, he says. High praise. Or the afternoon is spent organising the smoke-dried fish into storage bundles. You wrap them in birch bark, stack them in woven baskets, and label them, not with words but with carved symbols. A triangle for herring, a jagged line for cod, a circle with a dot for do not eat unless desperate. You ask Runa about that last one. Some fish dry funny, she shrugs. Tastes like guilt. During a break, you sit near the racks and drink a thin broth made from boiled fish heads, onion scraps and seaweed. It's warm at least. Someone nearby is carving a spoon from driftwood. Another man hums a tune that sounds suspiciously like it was invented just to annoy seagulls. You find yourself watching the smoke drift up from the roof of the smokehouse, curling into the pale sky like spirit trails. It's hypnotic. Eric drops down beside you, eyes watering from his own stint in the smoker. Lost feeling in my eyebrows, he mutters. They look fine. They're gone. You both stare at the fjord for a while. As evening settles in, the temperature drops fast. You help carry baskets of dried fish into the communal storehouse. It's cool, dry, and filled wall to wall with provisions, meat, cheese, sacks of barley, and enough fish to feed a longboat crew for weeks. You're told this is part of the winter prep. The sea might freeze, storms might cut off travel. Some years, fish vanish for weeks. These dried stores aren't just backup, they're survival insurance. And once every few weeks, a trade boat comes through, swapping fish for goods. Your village can't produce. Glass beads, whetstones, dyed wool, or if you're lucky, honey. Historical side note, while Viking trade routes stretched across Europe and even into Asia, local exchanges were just as important. A good stock of preserved fish could buy tools, cloth, or even political favours. In some places, fish was literal currency. You pack the last bundle, secure the storehouse door, and stretch your aching limbs. Still think smokehouses are boring? Eric asks. No, you say. They're terrifying and exhausting, but effective, like my mother. And that night, as the village quiets and the stars emerge, you're still coughing a little from smoke residue. The hut smells stronger now, like a campfire married a fish market, but somehow it's comforting. Sten throws a fishbone at a rat near the hearth, misses. The rat glares and scurries off. You lie back on your straw bedding, sore but strangely satisfied. In the distance, the smokehouse smoulders like a quiet beast, still at work while the rest of the world sleeps. A few villagers sing softly, a lullaby about keeping the sea's hunger at bay. You don't know the words, but you hum along anyway. And in your dreams, the smoke curls upward again, but this time it forms into shapes. A boat, a fish, a ghost with glowing eyes. It winks at you. You wink back. You never thought fish could cause a fist fight over a woolsock. But here you are. It's market day, and it's absolute chaos. You wake before dawn to the buzz of anticipation. The entire village is alive with activity. Boats being loaded, baskets being strapped, people arguing over whether 6 dried cod is too much to pay for a new cloak. Your hands are already sore just looking at the amount of carrying you're about to do. Big day, Eric grumbles, stuffing a sack of smoked eel onto the boat. Don't embarrass us. I'll try not to slip on a sardine and fall into a barrel again, you reply, straight-faced. Good. Last time was memorable. The journey to the market village takes nearly half the day. You and 6 others row one of the larger boats. The hull filled with baskets of dried fish, smoked bird meat, pickled eggs, and one suspicious jar that everyone's ignoring on purpose. Torkel insists it's healing mushrooms. No one's tried it. Yet, the fjord is mirror still, reflecting the surrounding cliffs so perfectly, it's like rowing through another world. Occasionally, seals pop their heads up to watch you pass, looking unimpressed. The air smells like salt, pine, and a hint of distant firewood. It's beautiful. You'd enjoy it more if your hands weren't already going numb from rowing. By midday, you arrive at a bustling trading post on a rocky inlet. Unlike your village, this one is larger, with actual docks, multiple longhouses, and smoke rising from half a dozen hearths. People from neighbouring fjords gather here, arriving by boat, foot, or in one memorable case, a goat-drawn sled. The shouting starts almost immediately. 2 cod for that? Might as well rob me blind. Don't you wave that herring at me, Ulf? I swear this cloak was worn by the Jarl's aunt. See the embroidery? You're swept into the madness. Eirik hands you a basket and a firm command. Trade this for anything warm, sharp or edible. No feathers, no teeth, no weird potions. 10 minutes later, you're offered a pouch of eagle feathers, a bag of bear teeth, and a glowing red liquid that smells like honey and danger. You politely decline. Eventually, you trade 3 smoked cod for a small iron knife with a carved handle. The blacksmith who made it nods approvingly. Good fish, he says. Doesn't smell cursed. You're unsure whether that's a compliment or a warning. Market day isn't just for trade. It's also for gossip, matchmaking, arguments, and occasional outbreaks of interpretive dance. You see a boy your age attempting to juggle dried trout while singing a drinking song. He drops a fish, shrugs, and keeps going. You overhear. Someone's goat gave birth to a calf. Somehow. The Jarl's daughter ran off with a raider but returned because he didn't bathe. A neighbouring village claims their fisherman caught a mermaid. The mermaid promptly bit him and escaped. Historical fun fact. Viking markets weren't just economic hubs. They were social melting pots. People traded news, made marriage arrangements, and settled legal disputes. Some were seasonal, others permanent. The most famous, like Kaupang or Hedeby, had thousands of residents and merchants from as far away as the Middle East. This one's smaller, but it has heart and lots of pickled things. You eventually wander past a stall selling wool cloaks dyed in deep reds and browns. The merchant eyes you carefully. Trader or thief? Fisher, you say, holding up your basket. He snorts. Same thing, but he accepts 2 bundles of smoked herring in exchange for a cloak that doesn't itch too badly and doesn't smell too much like goat. Success. You also acquire a pouch of dried lingonberries, a fire-starting flint set, 1 single leather mitten. You're still looking for the match. In return, you've traded away most of your fish stockpile, which means mission accomplished. Eric nods in approval. No feathers, he says. You're learning. As the sun begins to dip, a commotion near the central fire draws your attention. 2 men are arguing over a salted mackerel and a hand-knit sock. One claims the sock was promised for a salmon. The other insists he was offered the sock and the mackerel for a piece of bronze jewellery. Voices rise. Someone throws a turnip. A circle forms. And just like that, market fight. Now, Viking society had rules. Markets were often held under legal truce, and disputes were meant to be settled by the law speaker, a respected elder with a sharp tongue and better memory than most scrolls. But in smaller markets, sometimes things get more theatrical. The law speaker arrives, an old man with a walking stick carved with runes and a permanent scowl. He listens, he glares, he bangs his stick twice. Trade the sock, share the fish, hug if you must. Argument over. Everyone cheers. The sock is solemnly passed over. The mackerel is split down the middle. The law speaker sits down and promptly falls asleep. You help load your boat with your group's new goods. Barley sacks, wool, iron nails, and a sealed jar of honey that's already being fiercely guarded by Torkel. No one touches the jar, he says. Last year we lost one. Still haunts me. You believe him. He looks haunted. The row back is quieter. Everyone's tired. The fjord has gone glassy again, reflecting a golden twilight sky. You let your sore hands rest and instead watch the cliffs drift past. A sea eagle circles overhead. Somewhere in the water, a fish leaps and vanishes. Eric breaks the silence. You did good today. Thanks. Still kept the weird mushroom jar, though. Yeah, he grunts. Well, just don't drink it alone. Back in the village, the new supplies are distributed. There's excitement over the barley. One woman unwraps her new wool cloak like it's a royal robe. You present your half of a mitten to Stain. He raises a brow, shrugs, and wears it on his foot. You fall asleep with the taste of dried berries in your mouth and the warmth of your new cloak around your shoulders. And in your dreams, the market never ends, fish flopping from stall to stall, cloaks dancing through the air, and a sock with teeth chasing someone who looks suspiciously like you. The wind is howling, not politely, not even rudely. It's screaming, an all-out unhinged banshee wail that rattles the wooden walls of your hut and makes the turf roof creak like it's ready to peel off and fly to Iceland. You're already awake when Eric bursts in, hair plastered to his forehead, dripping rain all over the hearth. "Storm's coming," he growls. "A proper one?" You were about to say, "I noticed," but he's already shoving gear into a sack. You sit up, blink the sleep from your eyes and pull on your cloak, which now smells equal parts smokehouse and stale eel. Outside, the sky's dark, black, not grey, and the rain slants sideways like it has a grudge. The fjord, usually glassy and calm, is now a churning cauldron of angry foam and whitecaps. Torkel the haddock stands at the edge of the village, staring at the boats. He doesn't flinch when thunder cracks overhead. "Well?" you call out, half shouting against the wind. He spits into the storm. "We pull them inland." "Oh no." There's no waiting this one out. If the boats stay moored, the waves will tear them to splinters. So the village moves like ants before the flood. Ropes flying, voices shouting, bodies hauling longboats one by one onto dry land. You grab the front of a skiff and dig your heels into the mud. Water sloshes up your legs and your arms scream in protest. But together, with 6 others, you drag the boat above the tide line. A gust of wind nearly knocks you off your feet. Rain slices across your face like knives, and still another boat to go. By midday, you're soaked, bruised, and ready to become a farmer. Eirik hands you a bowl of warm broth, more rainwater than food at this point, and you huddle beside the now drenched smokehouse to catch your breath. Then someone says the word that makes everyone freeze. "Offerings." You raise an eyebrow. "To what?" "The rain." "To the spirits," Runa says, wrapping her cloak tighter. "We don't ride out a storm without respect." She points toward a small shrine at the edge of the cliffs. You've passed it before. A crude figure, carved from driftwood, antlers jammed into its head, painted red with something you hope is berry juice. You thought it was art. It's not. So, you find yourself following a group up the rocky cliff path, clutching a basket filled with offerings. Dried fish, seashells, and a bit of flatbread smothered in honey. Torkel glares when he sees it. Must be from the jar. At the shrine, everyone gathers in a tight circle. The wind whips around you. Sea spray hits your face. Someone begins to chant in low tones. They place the offerings at the base of the figure. One man cuts his palm and lets a few drops of blood fall on a stone. Runa says a prayer to Aegir, the sea god, and Ran, his wife, who collects drowned sailors. In her net, "Just in case," she whispers, "storms don't care who they take." Historians still argue whether such cliffside rituals were common or hyper-local traditions. Some believe Viking religion was deeply structured. Others suggest it was fluid, personal, improvised, passed down through stories and gut feelings rather than doctrine. Either way, when the wind howls like this, you don't feel like arguing. You leave the shrine with water in your boots and something tighter in your chest. Back in the village, the real work begins. Storm prep. You help tie down roofs with rope and weight stones. Windows, really just shutters, are reinforced with boards. Livestock is herded inside the longhouse. And yes, the goat that keeps staring at you gets a place by the hearth. You're not thrilled about it. The goat looks smug. Sten hauls a heavy chest into your hut and wedges it against the door. Inside it, everything valuable. Tools, dried herbs, flint, even a carved bone comb that Eirik swears keeps the sea spirits from tangling your hair in your sleep. You're not asking questions anymore. At that night, the storm breaks fully. The wind screams louder than any banshee saga ever described. Rain lashes the hut like it's trying to peel the roof open. You can hear waves crashing far below, higher than they should be. Someone's shouting in the distance. Then silence. Then another crash. Inside the hut, your world is flickering firelight, wet wool and held breath. Sten snores. Eirik mutters in his sleep. The goat farts. And then, a moment of fear unlike any you've felt so far. A crack. Loud. Wood snapping. The door shakes. You and Eirik leap up, grab spears and brace yourselves. For what? You don't know. The roof? A bear? Sea spirits finally fed up with your jokes? But it's just the fish racks, blown down the hillside. Tomorrow, you'll find smoked herring scattered across the rocks, like confetti. But for now, you hunker back down, heart still pounding. You whisper, thanks to whoever was listening, at the shrine. In the early morning hours, the storm begins to die. The wind lowers to a moan. The rain softens to a steady patter. And finally, silence. When you step outside, the village looks scraped. Not destroyed, but definitely chewed on. One hut's roof is missing a chunk. The smokehouse door is gone. The fjord is foaming at the edges like a mug of angry beer. You help the others assess the damage. No one is dead. No one is missing. Just wet, tired, and quietly grateful. Even Torkel cracks a smile. That's the sea, he says. She gives, she takes, she gets cranky when ignored. You nod, wiping rainwater from your brow. You survived your first proper Viking storm, and the fish still, or need drying. On that night, as everyone gathers to eat storm stew, which is just all the broken food boiled together, Runa places a fishbone at the centre of the hearth. For the sea, she says. May she nap for a while? You sleep deeply, wrapped in your half-wet cloak, muscles aching, dreams full of storm spirits, with nets made of moonlight, and laughter that sounds like thunder. The storm might have passed, but the smell of fermented sharks still lingers. You gag quietly. Tonight is feast night. The rain-racked village is recovering the Viking way, by dragging out every slightly edible item that survived the storm, mixing it with a terrifying amount of alcohol, and gathering around a fire to pretend the sea isn't always one tantrum, away from swallowing them whole. You've been invited, which mostly meant Torkel yelled across the path, "Bring something or don't come at all." You brought a jar of pickled mussels you found under Stein's bed. He hasn't touched them in weeks. You assume they're fair game. They smell like old regrets. The gathering is in the longhouse, a wide timber structure with a central fire pit, benches along the walls, and enough smoke to age a person 10 years just by breathing it. The rafters are strung with herbs, bones, and mysterious charms, one of which you're fairly sure is just a bird's foot tied to a chicken feather. For luck, probably. You squeeze in between Eirik and Runa, who are already halfway through a cup of mead and arguing about whether sea trolls exist. They do, Runa insists. I've seen one. You saw a seal, Eirik replies. It had shoulders. Seals have shoulders. This one waved at me. You sip cautiously from your own cup and decide not to join the debate. Yeah, the food is impressive. Not in the wow 5-star chef way, but in the you cooked what way. There's fermented shark called harkal that's been buried, dug up, and air-dried until it smells like ammonia-soaked socks. It's a delicacy, a test of courage, possibly both. Seal stew, rich and oily, served with limp seaweed garnish. Boiled root vegetables, still covered in just a little too much dirt. Smoked puffin, allegedly caught with honour, read by accident. And the star, fish and barley pie, which is basically all your least favourite flavours mashed into one mushy, flaky experience. You take small bites, smile bravely. Torkel watches you chew and nods approvingly. It's worse cold. And then someone starts drumming. Not with drums exactly, but with a fish spine on a wooden plate. The rhythm is contagious. Soon the entire longhouse is stomping, clapping and slapping benches to the beat. The fire crackles, shadows jump across the walls, and then the stories begin. First up, a tale of the Skaki Fisker, a crooked fish spirit said to curse nets and twist ropes if you mock the sea. The storyteller is a woman named Bryndis, whose eyes shine brighter than the firelight. She tells it like she lived it, voice low and haunting. They say the spirit was once a fisherman who stole from his crewmates, cursed by Aegir to wander the ocean, floor, stealing from others forever. You hear mutters of recognition. Everyone's lost something strange at sea. A boot, a knife, a full barrel of pickled herring. One day, she whispers, he'll come back up, looking for someone to trade places with. You glance sideways. Someone next to you clutches a fish hook charm a little tighter. Next is a more cheerful story. The legendary fish fighter Fjordgard. Apparently, during a feast much like this one years ago, two rival fishing crews argued over whose catch was bigger. The argument escalated, as Viking arguments often do, into a physical altercation, with dried fish as weapons. Fish were slapped, barrels were overturned. A man allegedly lost a tooth to a particularly rigid cod. The brawl only ended when the village priest declared the feast sacred and invoked Thor to smite the next person who threw a herring. Now, once a year, the village reenacts the fight, playfully, mostly. And then it's dance time. You try to stay seated, you really do, but Runa grabs your wrist and yanks you up before you can invent an excuse. The rhythm gets faster, the benches are pushed aside, and suddenly you're caught in a cyclone of stomping boots, spinning cloaks, and wildly flailing arms. The Viking version of a dance isn't graceful. It's not about finesse. It's about enthusiasm and endurance, and not accidentally knocking out your neighbour with a rogue elbow. You're sweating instantly. You're laughing. You're trying not to die. At one point, you lock eyes with someone who looks vaguely familiar. Then he shoulders you. Hard. The dancing stops. Everyone turns. That was Svenny, the guy you may or may not have undercut at the last trade gathering by offering a better smoked salmon for his prized sheepskin pouch. Oops. He steps closer, glaring. You dance like a drowning seal, he growls. Thank you, you reply. I practice with the goats. The crowd laughs. Tension breaks. Someone slaps your back. Svenny glares, mutters something about amateurs, and wanders off to steal someone's mead. You exhale, still alive. Exhausted and still slightly dizzy, you collapse near the fire and accept a plate of honeyed flatbread as a peace offering from Runa. She nudges your shoulder. You survived. Barely. You smell like shark. Everyone smells like shark. Fair point. One final story closes the night. The law speaker stands, grey-bearded and still crusty from the storm. He tells of a boy who went to sea alone, caught the largest fish ever seen, and let it go when it whispered his name. Was it magic? Someone asks. The speaker shrugs. Was it kindness? Was it foolishness? Doesn't matter. The sea remembers. And with that, the feast winds down. By Shivkosai, you walk back to your hut under a sky peppered with stars. The wind is finally calm. The waves are quiet. The goat, somehow, is already asleep in your spot. You lie beside it anyway. The fermented shark taste still lingers in your mouth. The stories linger louder, and in your dreams, you're dancing again, spinning on waves, surrounded by fish and flames, and a laughing seal wearing a crown. You're not even surprised. You wake to something scratching your back. For a horrifying second, you think it's the goat again. But no, it's your new tunic, coarse wool, woven by someone who clearly hated comfort. And it itches like it was designed by a particularly vengeful sheep. You shuffle out of your bedroll, scratching everywhere, muttering something halfway between a curse and a prayer. The old tunic was torn during the storm. This one was a gift, or punishment, hard to say, Runa made it herself and handed it to you with a smile that said, "I dare you not to wear this." So here you are, itchy, grateful, mildly cursed. Haturame is a quiet day. Also, you hope. No rowing, no gutting, no dancing. Instead, you're told to help clean out the boathouse and prepare driftwood for carving. "We need fresh runes," says Brindis, pressing a bundle of birch bark into your hand and nodding toward the rune pole at the centre of the village. It's tall, covered in swirling carvings that look like vines, snakes, and fish that may or may not be judging you. You gather driftwood from the rocky shore, dragging it uphill while the wind tries to shove you backwards. Every piece has a shape, a weight, a story. You start noticing patterns, a piece shaped like a twisted claw, another like a wave frozen in time. You pick one that looks like a fish hook and hold on to it, just because. Brindis is waiting with a sharp iron chisel and a bowl of black soot mixed with fish oil, ink for the carvings. She hands you a strip of bark marked with a rough set of runes. "This is your first one," she says, "protection from drowning. A solid first choice." As you sit cross-legged and begin to carve, she explains the meanings behind the symbols. Some are letters, others are ideas, some are just what feels right. You glance at her. "That's vague," she shrugs. "So is the sea." Historical fact break. The runic alphabets, like the Elder Futhark, were used across the Viking world for everything from gravestones to graffiti. But they weren't just writing systems. Many Vikings believed certain runes held power. A carved stave on a boat might ensure smooth sailing. A rune painted on a shield might deflect a blow. Scholars still debate how literal that belief was. Here in the village, it seems both decorative and devotional. You carve slowly, carefully. Every stroke sends a curl of wood to the ground. You ink the grooves with soot, watching the symbol come alive against the pale wood grain. It feels significant. Later, you're invited to hang your carving on the community rune pole. The moment is oddly ceremonial. You tie it to a branch with twine, and someone says a few words in Old Norse too fast for you to catch. You nod respectfully anyway. Then the goat headbutts the pole. No one reacts. Apparently, this is normal. And you're sent to collect a delivery from a trader who arrived during the feast. He's camped down near the water with his small boat and a basket of goods. You find him reclining on a log, chewing on dried berries and surrounded by half-wrapped bundles. He gives you a squint. "You're the one with the sea hair," he says. You touch your head. "What?" "Looks like the wind braided it for you." You choose to take that as a compliment. He hands over a pouch of ochre pigment, a bundle of wax cloth, and, most mysteriously, a carved stone pendant in the shape of a spiral. "From the west," he says. "Gift for the law speaker. They say it's good luck if buried on the shore during the full moon." "Does it work?" He grins. "Depends which spirits are listening." You pocket it carefully. That afternoon, you and Eric hike up the ridge overlooking the fjord to gather more bark for runa scrolls. The view is breathtaking, water stretching endlessly, silver under the clouds, cliffs rising like frozen waves. He points to a patch of rock far below. "See that black mark? That's where lightning hit last spring. Anyone get hurt?" "Just the cliff, but it screamed for hours." He's kidding, you think. Probably. Back in the village, you help collect offerings to place near the rune pole before nightfall. A ritual to honour the spirits of the water and air. Small things, shells, feathers, painted stones, bones carved with spirals. Everyone contributes. Even Sten, who normally grunts more than speaks, adds a perfect little fish skeleton arranged in a spiral. "You made that?" you ask. He nods once. You feel deeply underqualified. That night, the stars return. Clear skies, crisp air. You lie on your back just beyond the firelight, hands still stained with soot and fish oil, staring at the constellations overhead. The others murmur nearby, quiet, drifting voices telling tales, singing softly, laughing. Runa sits beside you, wrapping her cloak tighter. You didn't mess up the rune. Thanks. Probably not cursed. Appreciate that. Pause. It might itch forever though, she says, tugging the edge of your tunic. You groan. You dream of carved wood drifting across the sea, fish with rune-marked scales, spirits moving through waves like whispers, reading the signs you've left behind. One of them waves at you. You wave back. The cold bites harder when you head north. You can feel it in your teeth, your fingertips, the small space behind your ears that no hood ever quite covers. But you're bundled up in furs, boots stuffed with wool, and your questionable tunic, which still itches by the way, as you hike along the coastal cliffs with 6 others in search of something bigger than fish. Today is not for nets or rowing. Today is for seal hunting and sacred caves, because apparently those are now part of your job description. And the seal hunting group is led by a woman named Jorah, whose presence could best be described as tall, silent, and terrifyingly competent. She carries a spear as long as you are, walks like she's part bear, and has a single white braid trailing down her back like a frozen rope. When she talks, everyone listens, even Eric, even Sten. You're carrying a rope, a bone-handled knife, and a growing sense of anxiety. Stay quiet, Jorah says. Seals spook easy, especially when they know you're new. You're not sure if that last part is a joke. Probably not. The journey takes hours. You hike along icy cliffs, past rocky outcrops and stunted pine trees, your boots crunching frost-coated lichen. The fjord stretches endlessly to your left, glittering under a pale winter sun. Gulls wheel overhead, screeching like they know something you don't. Eric points out a rock, shaped like a sleeping troll. That's Scaldy, he whispers, froze waiting for his fish to come back. You're starting to believe every rock around here has a story. Some funny, some probably not meant for bedtime. By mid-morning, you reach the outer shelf of rock, where the seals haul up to rest. Everyone crouches behind a ridge, peering through cracks in the stone. And there they are, 3 harbour seals, sunning themselves on a ledge. Fat, shiny, sleepy, adorable, too adorable. You'll need to strike before they slip into the water, Jorah whispers, handing you a throwing stick. You gulp. These are for oil, she says, and meat and skins. We don't waste anything. You nod. You understand. You just weren't prepared to meet dinner's eyes. Eirik and another hunter move first, creeping low over the rocks. You follow, heartbeat thundering. The air is tense. The seals shift slightly, sensing something. And then, Eirik whistles. The seals turn, a stick flies, the smallest seal flops into the water. Another vanishes in a splash, but the third doesn't. You blink, realizing what's happened. It worked. Your group just caught a seal. There's no cheering, just quick movement, a swift prayer. The others move in to help secure the catch, hauling it back from the rocks. You eyes sit back, heart racing, unsure, whether to feel pride, sorrow, or nausea. First hunt's never clean, Jorah murmurs, reading your face, but it keeps the lamps burning. And she's right. Seal fat becomes oil. The skin becomes warm, waterproof cloaks. The meat feeds the village for days. Nothing is wasted. Still, it sits heavy on your stomach. Runa places a hand on your shoulder. They say seals carry the souls of drowned sailors, she says quietly. But maybe that means they understand. You're not sure if that helps, but you nod anyway. After cleaning the site and wrapping the seal for the hike back, the group doesn't immediately return home. Instead, Jorah leads you inland, into a narrow crack in the cliffs. that opens like a wound into the earth. You hesitate. She says nothing, just walks in, so you follow. And the cave is dark, cold echoing. The walls drip with moisture. Your breath clouds in front of you, illuminated by flickering torchlight. The air smells ancient, wet stone, moss, and something underneath it all. Something earthy, metallic. It's quiet. Until Eirik stumbles and shouts. You all whip around, then exhale. He slipped on a patch of moss. Classic Eirik. Still, your nerves are fraying. And then you see them. Paintings. Faint, ruddy shapes on the cave wall. Faded outlines of fish, boats, hands, spirals, runic symbols that don't match any you've seen before. You reach out, almost touch, but stop yourself. They're sacred, Jorah says softly. Left by the old ones, before we came here. Who were they? No one knows, but the sea remembers. Historical debate time. Were Vikings the first people in every corner of Scandinavia? Probably not. Many caves contain pre-Viking art, likely left by earlier hunter-gatherer cultures. Some scholars believe these sites became spiritual spaces for later generations. Others think they were simply forgotten. But here, in this cave, you can feel the age. It presses on your skin. You find one particular symbol, an open hand with a spiral in the palm. It's repeated 3 times, each smaller than the last. Eirik points to it. Legend says this is the mark of the sea dreamers, people who could hear the tide's will in their sleep. Did it ever help them? He grins. Depends on what it said. As you exit the cave, blinking in the sudden daylight, you feel heavier. Not in a bad way, just like your bones now carry something older than you. The others are quiet too. Even Sten. Up the hike home is slower. The sun is lower. The seal is bundled and heavy on its sled, pulled by 2 others in the group. You're exhausted, sore, and still thinking about those cave walls. You pass Skuldi the stone troll again. This time you nod to him. He doesn't nod back, probably. And back in the village, there's a hush as the seal is brought in. People gather, not to gawk, but to prepare. It will be skinned, cleaned, divided fairly, every part accounted for. A small portion will go to the shrine on the cliff. The rest, life for the coming cold. You return to your hut and collapse by the fire. You're still itchy. You're still aching. But you've seen what came before. And tonight you'll dream not of fish, but of hands reaching out from stone, spirals spinning in the dark, and a seal with human eyes looking back. They arrive just after sunrise, sails rising over the fjord like grey wings. At first you think it's traders, more salted fish swapping hands, more shouting about overpriced cloaks. But then you see the shields, round, painted, lashed to the sides of the boats. The men at the oars are broad-shouldered, laughing too loudly. One of them stands at the prow, wind snapping his cloak behind him, like a flag. These are not traders, these are raiders, and you're about to learn how blurry that line can get. Eirik squints at the incoming boats and grunts. Here we go, visiting warriors. Are we in danger, you ask, clutching your freshly mended net, like it'll somehow defend you. He snorts. Only if you flirt with the wrong sister. You're not reassured. The boats dock smoothly, like they own the fjord, which, judging by the swagger, they think they do. The warriors disembark, laughing, slapping each other's backs, carrying bundles of furs, barrels of ale, and a strange energy that's part celebration, part warning. They've just come from a raid. Somewhere west. Maybe the British Isles, maybe Ireland, maybe just another Viking village that didn't lock its doors hard enough. They're not bloodied. They're not limping. They're grinning. Victors. You're introduced to a few. Halldor, with a braided beard and a silver-ringed thumb. Yngvi, whose forehead bears a scar shaped like a lightning bolt. And Brynjar, the man from the prow, tall, sunburnt, wearing a necklace made of carved bone that you really hope is from a boar, and not something worse. He eyes you. You fish? You nod. Good. A man who feeds others is worth more than one who just swings steel. Then he slaps your shoulder so hard, you stumble 3 steps back. Compliment? Maybe. Dislocated clavicle? Possibly. The visiting warriors are here to rest, trade, and swap stories, which they do immediately. At the longhouse that evening, they lay out spoils, woven cloth, beads, an iron buckle shaped like a dragon, and something that might be a bishop's hat, now doubling as a drinking bowl. Everyone crowds around, eager to hear tales from far-off lands. They talk about monks running like geese, churches full of gold, and a town where no one had ever seen snow. One claims to have fought a bear with a chair. Another claims he is part bear. Neither are questioned. You sit back, absorbing the scene. The village, your village now, has changed in a breath. The arrival of warriors turns everything electric. Conversations are louder. The fire feels hotter. Even the goat seems more alert. But not everyone's thrilled. Runa leans in. They eat like wolves and pay like rats. You glance over. One of the warriors is chewing dried fish and cleaning his nails with a dagger. She's not wrong. But later, around the fire, Brynjar tells the story of the silent raid. They landed at night, he says, with no drums, no torches, just the hiss of the sea behind them. Moved like smoke through the village. Took what they needed, no blood spilled. You can take a man's food without taking his life, he says, if you're clever enough. Someone claps, others murmur. Then Yngvi pipes up with a different view. But where's the fun in that? Laughter erupts. Mead is spilled. Someone challenges someone else to an axe-throwing contest, and before long, there's a row of axes embedded in a nearby tree stump, the bark splintered and trembling. Historical note, Viking raids weren't all blood and fire. Many were more like aggressive shopping trips. Strike fast, take valuables, leave before reinforcements arrive. But the line between raid and trade was often thin. Some villages welcomed visiting warriors in exchange for goods, protection, or shared feasts. Others didn't get the choice. You're realizing that being a fisherman doesn't make you separate from that world. It just means your axe is smaller. But the next day, you're asked to take some of the warriors out on the water. Fishing, they claim. Relaxing, they say. You suspect they just want to see if they can catch a cod using sheer intimidation. You, Eirik and Torkel lead them in 3 skiffs. Brynjar insists on rowing. You don't argue. His biceps look like they could bend the boat in half if he flexed too hard. Out on the water, things feel calmer. The sea has a way of softening even the loudest men. The sun glints on the waves. Seagulls squawk. A seal bobs in the distance, watching with its usual look of eternal disappointment. You cast your nets. So does Brynjar, sort of. He tangles it instantly, blames the net, and ends up using his hands to slap the water. He does not catch anything. You, meanwhile, haul up a fat cod and toss it into the boat. He stares at it, then at you. Respect, he says solemnly. Teach me your fish ways. You nod, trying not to laugh. Back on shore, the warriors begin to pack up. Their visit was brief, restful, loud. You help load their spoils. One gives you a carved bead. Another tries to trade you a magic rock for your knife. You decline. Politely. Brynjar shakes your hand with a grin. You swing a net well. If ever you grow bored of fish, find me. You offering me a spot? I'm offering you a chance. You're tempted, just a little. As they vanish over the horizon, sails fading into the mist, the village exhales, quieter now, settling. The fire crackles, the goat headbutts your shin with familiar passive aggression. You look out at the fjord, raiders, traders, farmers, fishers. Turns out they're not different lives, just different tides. There's a goat in the council circle. You're not sure if that's normal or a deeply symbolic omen, but no one seems particularly alarmed. So you follow Sten and Eirik to the edge of the central clearing, where the thing is happening today. It's called a moot, the village gathering where disputes are aired, decisions made, and occasionally people are shamed into giving back what they borrowed 3 winters ago. You settle onto a log, between a man with one eyebrow and a woman still wearing an eelskin apron, and brace yourself. This is not your average town hall meeting. At the centre stands the law speaker, the same elder who settled the great sock viz mackerel incident at the market. He's tall, stern, and looks like he's been carved from old driftwood and fermented in mead. His walking stick is etched with runes and slightly singed at the end, likely from too many dramatic hearthside speeches. He bangs it on the stone. Moot begins, and just like that, the entire village is suddenly, almost suspiciously, quiet. Or the first matter, stolen fish. Apparently, someone's entire stockpile of smoked cod went missing 2 nights ago. The owner, an elderly woman named Sigga, who could outstare a stone, accuses her neighbour, a young man named Olvar, of sneaking in during the storm and liberating her winter supplies. Olvar claims he was borrowing them to test a new recipe involving pickled cabbage and mustard seeds. Is that a crime, he demands. Yes, says the law speaker, without hesitation. You try not to laugh. Sigga glares in your direction anyway. Its second issue, mysteriously multiplying sheep. This one's trickier. Bjorn, a flax merchant, claims his neighbour's flock has grown suspiciously over the past month, from 6 to 14. The neighbour, a jolly man named Finner, insists it's due to robust parenting and a very romantic ram. Bjorn snorts. One of those sheep still has my marking stone on its leg. The law speaker considers this. A stone is produced, so is a sheep. The sheep is not consulted. Eventually, the moot declares that the flock must be recounted, the stones reviewed, and a neutral shepherd appointed. You wonder if that's a real job, or if someone just made it up to avoid actually dealing with sheep. And then comes something a little more serious, a boundary dispute. A rock wall marking 2 families' plots has shifted, thanks to erosion, or goats, or possibly a bored child with a chisel, and now both claim the same narrow strip of land. It's not much, but it's where one grows onions and the other dries fish skins. A suggestion is made. Turn it into shared land. Another. Build a new wall. And then someone in the back yells, "Duel with leeks!" They're ignored. Barely. The law speaker decides the strip will be temporarily shared until the next thaw, when new boundary stones will be placed. No leeks required. You find yourself surprisingly drawn in. There's something deeply human about the whole thing. Grudges aired, jokes slipped in, wrongs mostly righted. It's messy, it's loud, but it works. You remember a carving from the cave, the open hand with a spiral, a symbol maybe of offering peace, or preparing to slap someone creatively. Historical moment. Viking societies had legal systems, actual ones. The thing, or moot, was a real assembly where free men, and sometimes women, debated law and justice. They didn't rely on kings to decide everything. Instead, they used oral tradition, precedent, and a solid memory of who owed whom a goat. Some historians still argue whether moots were more democratic than they sound, or just a way to let louder voices win. But you can see how vital it is, this ritual of rules in a world ruled by chaos. Now comes a surprise. The law speaker calls out your name. You freeze. You were not prepared for this. You were promised a calm morning with fish sorting and maybe a nap. He gestures. You stand, slowly. There is a petition, he says, to make the outsider. You, a full member of the fishing circle. You blink. Eirik gives you a thumbs up. Torkel nods from the back. Sten shrugs. You say nothing, because your throat has joined a union and is on strike. The law speaker turns to the crowd. Any objections? There's silence. Then someone yells, He smells like cod, but rows like a man, laughter. The law speaker bangs his staff. Accepted, he's one of us. You sit down before your knees betray you. Later, during the after-moot gathering, a fancy name for eating bread and complaining in groups, Runa grins and hands you a fishhook carved from bone. Now it's official, she says. If you die at sea, we'll at least carve your name on the pole. Comforting. It's the highest honour. No, she's not joking. You pocket the hook carefully. All that evening, the village is lively with post-moot energy. Someone roasts seal meat over an open flame. Children reenact the sheep trial, with surprisingly accurate bleating. Even the goat gets a scrap of flatbread for its efforts, as honorary observer. You wander past the rune pole, noticing a new carving. A spiral surrounded by tiny fish. Yours. It wasn't there this morning. You fall asleep that night with a strange warmth in your chest. Acceptance, belonging, also possibly fever. The eel-skin apron woman hugged you a little too hard, but mostly belonging. And in your dreams, you stand at the centre of the moot, not as an outsider, not as the goat wrangler, but as someone whose voice matters. Even if you're still not allowed near the sheep. The nights are growing longer now, not just a little longer, a lot. The sun yawns, blinks once around mid-afternoon, and then promptly vanishes like it remembered something it forgot in another hemisphere. Darkness comes early, cold comes earlier, and with it comes the gossip. Because when people can't fish, row, or wrestle goats in the daylight, they start entertaining themselves in other ways. And apparently, that means whispering in corners and spinning tales over firelight until the line between fact and fiction isn't just blurry, it's wearing someone else's tunic. You get your first taste of it during dinner. Eirik sits beside you, chewing on a root vegetable that tastes like wet rope, and murmurs, "So, did you hear about Svala and the blacksmith?" "No." He leans in. "They were seen walking together past the goat shed at night." You blink. "Scandalous." "They were laughing." Gasp. "They weren't wearing cloaks." Okay, that's genuinely suspicious. Inside your shared hut, the fire crackles low. The air is thick with warmth, smoke, and the unmistakable scent of oil-soaked wool. Sten snores in a rhythm that suggests he may be communicating with distant whales. You sit wrapped in your itchy cloak, still itchy, sipping hot broth while the others exchange stories one after another, like cards in a game you don't know the rules to yet. And that's when it begins, the ghostfish tale. Runa, of course, is the one who tells it. She always seems to know the stories that crawl under your skin, just enough to make you question every creak in the wall. "There's a fish," she begins, "long as a man, pale as snow, with fins like sea glass. It swims up the fjord only during nights like this, when the moon is high and the fire crackles blue." She stares into the flames, letting the silence build. It doesn't eat bait, it eats names. Names, you ask, because apparently you have to. If it hears yours and you're not careful, it swallows it. And then you forget who you are. She grins. Imagine waking up not knowing your own face. Or there's a long pause. Sten coughs. Eirik mutters something about a dream he once had, where a fish stole his boots and replaced them with seaweed. You chuckle, but later that night, wrapped in your blankets and listening to the wind howl through the cracks in the wall, you're definitely not repeating your own name aloud, just in case. The next morning, the cold is relentless. The ground crunches underfoot. Your breath fogs the air like smoke. You help haul firewood from the storehouse and gather fresh pine needles to layer under the sleeping mats. A trick Runa swears keeps out the chill, and also the voices. You don't ask which voices, but you do notice something weird near the smokehouse. Footprints, bare, small, leading to nowhere. You point them out to Eirik. He shrugs. Probably kids. In the snow? They're weird, fair enough. At that night, more gossip. this time from a woman named Thora, who speaks like she's reading from an ancient scroll nobody asked to see. Did you know Joran's second cousin can speak to seabirds? No, but I believe it. She says they told her where her husband was before he returned. You raise an eyebrow. She also says he was with someone named Feather Eyes. Someone chokes on their stew. You're pretty sure it's from laughter. And then come the love stories. Low murmurs, side glances, quiet smiles, a broken bracelet passed from hand to hand, like some kind of coded message. Turns out Viking gossip is equal parts romance novel and fish catalogue. You overhear one girl whisper, "He caught 2 trouts and still brought me berries, that's love." Later, Runa sighs and nudges your arm. "Anyone catch fish for you yet?" "Only Sten, and I think it was accidental." Romantic. "He didn't look at me, he just threw it at my face." Even better. But gossip here isn't just fluffy nonsense. It serves a purpose. It keeps the community tight. A warning system, a bonding ritual, a pressure valve. In a world where winter kills crops, waves sink boats and storms arrive like angry uncles, talking becomes a survival skill. You learn who's reliable, who owes fish, who once fell asleep in a net and had to be rescued by a passing monk. That one gets repeated often. Historical context. While Viking sagas are filled with tales of war and conquest, day-to-day communities often relied on oral storytelling to pass down history, genealogy, legal precedents, even land claims. Some scholars believe gossip filled the gaps between lore and myth, helping people understand who they were and who to avoid at feasts. You start sharing stories too. Little ones, made-up ones, half-remembered things from dreams. You tell the tale of the runaway goat, who founded his own village, the seal who married a fisherman, the herring who cursed a longship and turned its crew into birds. People laugh, they nod. Runa claps once and says, "That herring sounds like my uncle." It's ridiculous, it's wonderful, it's home. That night, as everyone settles under their blankets, you hear a whisper outside, a soft thump, then the bleating of a goat. You peek out. Nothing. Just snow drifting gently through the night. And faintly, so faintly, you think you hear your name. You close the door and double-check the lock. Just in case. You don't wake up to shouting this morning, or to the smell of fish, or a goat's face hovering uncomfortably close to yours, or even Eirik's muttered insults in his sleep. No, this morning you wake to singing, low, rhythmic, slow as the tide, not joyful, not mournful, just reverent. You sit up, the hut still dim, fire low, breath puffing white in the cold air. The singing is outside, growing louder now. Eirik is already dressed, his cloak trimmed with thin red thread you've never seen before. Sten's wiping something off his boots, possibly blood, possibly stew. You decide not to ask. "What's happening?" you whisper. Eirik glances at you serious. "It's the blessing day." You blink. "For," he pulls on his gloves, "for the boats." It's still dark when you follow the others to the shoreline. The entire village is there, cloaked, silent, gathered around the longboats pulled up and braced for winter. They glisten faintly with frost. The fjord behind them is still and black, like a sleeping thing. At the centre of the crowd stands the Godi, the village priest. His name is Hallstein, and he looks like a man who has stared down gods and then told them to hold their tongues while he finished his stew. He's draped in fur. Around his neck hangs a hammer, carved from whalebone, the symbol of Thor, protector of sailors, defender of the ordinary, smiter of fools. He raises both hands. The singing fades. No one speaks. The only sound is the soft crackle of the fire pit that's been lit beside the boats. Then Hallstein walks forward. In one hand, he carries a small bowl of blood. In the other, a hammer. You swallow hard. Historical break. Viking priests or Godar performed both religious and political duties. They were mediators, advisors, and spiritual guides. Many rituals involved offerings, sometimes symbolic, sometimes animal, and yes, sometimes blood. The hammer of Thor was a frequent emblem, especially in seafaring communities where survival often depended on weather and luck. Today, you're witnessing one of those rituals, up close, with a front row view. Lucky you. Halstein walks slowly from boat to boat, dipping the hammer into the bowl, then flicking drops of blood onto the prow, the oars, and the deck. He mutters words you don't recognise. Old Norse, probably older than even that. Runes carved into sound. Bless the keel, that it split not. Bless the wind, that it betray not. Bless the catch, that it spoil not. He says it each time, again and again. When he gets to your skiff, the one you rowed with Eric, caught your first cod, nearly lost your mittens in, he pauses. He stares at you. You stare back. Then he smears a single stripe of blood across the wooden side with his thumb. For the sea child, he says, loud enough for everyone to hear. You have no idea what that means, but it echoes in your chest. After the ritual, the crowd moves as one to the feast area, where hot broth and honey bread await. You eat in silence for once, chewing slowly, letting the heat settle into your bones. Even the children are quiet. It's not somber, it's sacred. Everyone feels it. Even the goat is behaving. Later, Holstein finds you near the drying racks, where fish hang like wind chimes in the breeze. You looked pale this morning, he says. I didn't expect blood. Few do, but it wakes you, doesn't it? You nod. He studies you. You've taken to this place. I think so. He raises an eyebrow. You dream, don't you? You pause. Yes. He nods, satisfied. Good. Listen to them. The gods don't always shout. He walks away, muttering to himself, and leaves you even more confused than before. You help Runa scrub down the boats later, working quietly side by side. She says nothing until she flicks water in your face. You sputter. Sea child, huh? She grins. Don't start. Oh, I'm starting. Does that mean you're going to grow gills? Speak with whales? Command the tide with a single, moody sigh? I already sigh like that. True, it's your best skill. You flick water back. She shrieks. Someone slips on a wet oar behind you. You don't look back. The day ends in a small gathering around Halstein's longhouse. He chants again, this time in a whisper. A fire crackles. He burns dried seaweed and pine needles, and the smoke smells oddly sweet, like salt and sap. You're given a bit of ash to smear on your hands. Protection. Sten does both hands. Eirik does one, then wipes it on his cloak, claiming, the spirits already know where to find him. You do both, just in case. At that night, in the hut, you sleep soundly. The fire glows low. The goat has taken up residence near your feet again. There's peace in the air, stillness, and in your dreams, you're in the boat again. Only it glides across the stars, not water. The oars stir constellations. You're not alone. Halstein's voice echoes. Bless the tide, that it take not. Bless the name, that it fade not. You wake to the soft lapping of the fjord, and your name's still intact. The sea gives, the sea takes, and sometimes the sea throws a curveball. It's midday. You're helping mend a net that somehow got turned into a makeshift hammock by two of the village kids. Long story, very little supervision, one broken finger, when a shout echoes across the fjord. At first you assume someone's seen another seal, or perhaps the goat has fallen off the cliff again. Yes, again, it's a drama goat, but the shouting gets louder, sharper, and then the word hits your ears like a thunderclap. Shipwreck. Everyone runs. You drop your net and sprint with Eirik, Runa, and a small crowd to the rocky outcrop beyond the smokehouse, where the fjord opens wide. The sky is clear, the wind light. But there, not far from shore, a half-sunken boat bobs, one side caved in. The sail torn to ribbons. Wrecked, recent. Someone's already in the water, waving weakly. You don't hesitate. You grab a rope, strip off your cloak, and dive. The fjord water is glacial. It hits like a punch to the soul. Your muscles lock, lungs scream, but you power through, stroking hard toward the flailing figure. It's a man, barely conscious, clinging to a broken oar. You shout. He groans something in a language that might be Norse, might be prayer, might be delirium. You loop the rope under his arms, signal the others, and together they pull. It takes effort. The surf fights you, but finally the stranger is dragged up onto the rocks, shivering, coughing, alive, barely. But you collapse beside him, soaking wet and shaking, and then he opens one eye, blue, bloodshot, alert. "Thank you," he rasps. You blink. "You speak?" "Some enough." He tries to sit, fails. Runa's already there with a blanket. Eric produces something hot and probably alcoholic. The stranger drinks, winces and murmurs. "Boat struck stone. Too fast. I tried to steer, lost the others." Your heart tightens. "How many?" He shakes his head. 3. Gone. His name is Alric. He's from the north, further up the coast, somewhere colder, harsher and lonelier than your village, which is saying something. He'd been travelling with 2 friends and a cousin, delivering smoked seal meat and iron goods to another village when the wind turned against them. The fjord can be a beast, even in good weather. One sharp rock under the surface, and it doesn't matter how strong your ship is. You've seen boats like his before. Small trader vessels, deeper hulls than fishing boats, built for coastal hopping and cargo runs. You've also seen what the fjord does to the ones that don't respect it. Ulrich is taken to the longhouse, wrapped in furs, fed warm broth. He speaks little, eats slowly, and stares into the fire with the expression of a man who's seen something he can't quite name. Hallstein, the Gode, offers a quiet prayer to Ran, the sea goddess who collects the drowned. Runa whispers that 3 stones will be placed on the shoreline tomorrow, for the lost ones, 1 for each. "That's how they're remembered," she says softly. "Stone and sea." The next day, you help Alric return to the wreckage. The boat is grounded now, its hull broken open like a cracked shell. You climb down the rocks with him, pulling out anything salvageable: rope, iron nails, a carved bone box, probably for trade, and a small charm carved into driftwood. You hand it to him silently. He holds it like something sacred. Historical note. Vikings valued salvage. Wrecks weren't just tragic, they were resources. Communities often took in the remnants of sunken ships and gave survivors temporary protection or even long-term places in the household. Hospitality wasn't just kindness, it was law, but a stranger always came with questions. And Alric, he's full of them. Over the following days, he recovers quickly. Too quickly, some whisper. He starts helping with repairs, cooking, even rowing when allowed. The kids like him. The goat does not, a strong character reference, but it's Runa who notices first. "He doesn't blink when he lies," she murmurs. You blink. "What?" "I asked where he got the pendant. He said it was from his cousin, but then he said his cousin couldn't swim." Maybe both are true. Or neither. You start watching. He's strong, yes, skilled. He knows boats. But there's a moment, one night, beside the fire, where someone mentions a raiding crew from the north that went missing last season. Alric stiffens, just a little, enough. Later, you find him at the edge of the fjord, staring out at the water. "You're not staying, are you?" you ask. He doesn't look at you. "No." "Are you running from something?" A long pause, then, "Not anymore." That's when you realise he wasn't just shipwrecked, he was leaving. Whatever was behind him, blood feud, failed raid, a crime, a heartbreak, it sank with that boat. And maybe now he's someone new, or trying to be. It's the next morning he's gone. No note, no goodbye, just footprints in the frost leading toward the cliffs, and one single rune carved into the driftwood by the fire pit. A spiral. You don't know what it means, but maybe that's the point. At that night, as the village sleeps and the wind picks up again, you stand at the shoreline. The water is calm, the stars ripple in its surface, and you think of Alric, whatever his real name was, out. There, rowing into some unknown dawn, the sea erasing his wake as fast as he makes it. Not a villain, not a hero, just a man trying to survive the tide. Like you. Fish taxes. You didn't even know that was a thing until this morning. You wake to a knock, more like a bang, on your hut door. Eirik answers, still half asleep, and receives a scroll. Not parchment, not paper, just a flat piece of bark with jagged runes carved into it like angry teeth. He groans. The Jarl wants his share. You blink blearily. Of what? Fish, smoked, salted, dried, doesn't matter. If it has fins, it now belongs to him. Ah, Viking bureaucracy. You see, once a season, the Jarl, the regional lord, sends his envoy to collect taxes from every village in his domain. Not gold, not silver, but goods, fish, wool, ironwork, whatever keeps his mead hall warm and his table full. It's not a request. And this year, the envoy arrives early. And the man who shows up is named Asgrim. He wears a wolfskin cloak and carries a short staff with gold bands, sign of the Jarl's authority. He also has a smile that's too straight to be trustworthy. Such a lovely village, he says, eyes gliding over the huts, the boats, the bundles of drying herring like he's measuring their worth in stomachs. You watch from a distance as Halstein greets him with a stiff nod. They exchange pleasantries in that overly polite way people do when one of them has the power to burn down the other's house. Then the negotiations begin. So you're invited to observe, probably because you've accidentally become the one who talks good after your market day adventures and being officially sworn in at the moot. Congratulations, you're now semi-useful. Inside the longhouse, the air is tense. Asgrim sits at the head of the table, a cup of mead untouched before him. Halstein, Torkel, and two other elders sit opposite him, arms crossed. I come with respect, Asgrim says, but the Jarl's needs grow. Don't they always? Torkel mutters. Asgrim ignores him. We ask for 10 baskets of dried cod, 5 of smoked herring, and 1 of fermented shark, for festivities. Festivities, Runa whispers, behind you, meaning the Jarl wants to impress someone who doesn't like him. You try not to snort. The room debates. 10 baskets is a lot. It means shorting the village's own winter supply. But refusing isn't an option. The Jarl owns the land, the laws, and enough spears to turn your home into kindling. Eventually, a deal is struck. 8 baskets of cod, 6 herring, no shark. Too early in the season, Halstein says, deadpan. All the good ones are still moody. Asgrim, clearly not wanting a fuss, accepts. But just before he leaves, he glances at you. You're the outsider. You nod. He steps close, too close. Be careful who you speak for, he says softly. Tongues rot faster than fish. Then he smiles again and walks out. Later, while helping load the tribute onto his boat, you overhear a quiet conversation between two elders. Taxes get worse every year. He's bleeding us thin. Time to speak with the West Fjord villages. You pretend not to hear, but the implication hangs in the air like wood smoke. Tensions are rising, and not just over fish. That afternoon, you find a pouch tucked behind your hut. Inside, dried eel skin, wrapped around 3 iron nails, and a scrap of wool dyed purple. It's a message, a subtle one. Runa explains, 3 nails means 3 weeks. Purple means meeting. Eel skin, it's a warning. You blink. How do you know that? She smirks. I gossip with the bone setter. Old people say everything if you pretend your leg hurts. Who? You don't know who left the pouch, or what the meeting is, or where, but you do know this. There are power shifts happening beneath the surface. The Jarl wants more. The village has less, and fish only stretch so far. That night, you join Halstein and Torkel around the fire. Not to ask questions, just to be present. Trusted. The Goldie is silent for a while. Then, without looking at you, he says, "What do you think keeps a village alive?" You hesitate. "Fish, fire, fair weather." He nods slowly. "All good guesses, but wrong." He turns to you, eyes hard. "Balance." He gestures around the fire pit. Too much pride, you invite war. Too much silence, you invite rot. Speak too loudly, and the wind hears. Speak too softly, and your house collapses. Torkel sips his mead and grunts. He's saying, "Don't poke the Jarl unless your boat's faster." "Or unless you've got something sharper than a net," Halstein adds. You nod, unsure whether they're warning you or inviting you in. Maybe both. Historical note: Viking age taxation was complex. It wasn't always enforced by kings, it came from jarls, chieftains, or even religious authorities. Payment in goods was standard, but when taxes increased or rulers grew greedy, local communities often resisted in subtle ways, trading with rival jarls, hiding surplus, or even forming alliances. Quiet rebellion. Fish by fish. You go to bed that night with thoughts swirling like gulls in a storm. The sea may be calm, but power shifts like the tide. And tonight, somewhere in the shadows, the balance begins to tip. It begins with farewells, not dramatic ones, not with tears and long embraces and heartfelt speeches beside the fjord. No, this is Viking farewell style. Stoic nods, heavy packs, last-minute net repairs, and a mumbled, "If I don't die, I'll bring you something weird." You wake to the sound of boots crunching frost and boats creaking under the weight of supplies. The raiding season is opening again. Trade routes are thawing. Some villagers are leaving for commerce, adventure, duty. Others, like you, stay. Or maybe not. That's the question, isn't it? You're pulling the last of the salted fish from the racks when Runa walks by, a bundle slung over her shoulder and a fur-wrapped pack tied at her hip. You blink. "You're leaving?" "Westward," she says casually. "Trading party. Some of us have debts to settle, dried fish to trade, new cloaks to collect. You know, the glamorous life." "You didn't say anything." "I didn't think I had to." She hesitates, then pulls something from her pouch. A small carved charm, fish-shaped, polished smooth. The same spiral from the cave etched onto its side. "For you," she says, and presses it into your hand. "In case you forget who you are." You don't speak. You can't. She grins, turns, and vanishes into the blur of movement along the shore. Eirik, on the other hand, is staying. So is Stein. Torkel, too. These are the villagers who've chosen their routes. You find them repairing boats, sharpening axes, reinforcing fish stores. Halstein calls you over. "The Jarl's envoy won't return until midsummer," he says. "You've got time to choose your direction." You look out over the water. The fjord is flat and calm, tempting, but dangerous too. Later, you help load the last of the trade goods onto the westbound longship. Dried herring, smoked puffin, leather goods, even some jars of fermented shark wrapped carefully in cloth and denial. One man claps you on the shoulder. "We could use a hand," another. "You row like a god." "Well, a god with back pain," Runa's voice echoes. "In case you forget who you are." You spend the evening walking the village, quietly. You pass the longhouse, now calm, its hearth still warm from earlier farewells. You pass the shrine at the cliffs. Someone's left a fresh fishbone spiral offering. The goat, yes, still alive, trails behind you for a few paces before deciding you're not carrying snacks and peeling off toward the fish guts pile. the stars appear, and you still haven't decided. And that night, you sit by the rune pole. It's grown crowded. New carvings, new names, new prayers. Your spiral hangs there too, slightly worn by wind, but still clear. You add a new mark, small, subtle, just yours. It doesn't answer the question, but it's a start. In the morning, 3 boats push off. You help push one of them down the shore. Runa's not in it. She must have left early, or from a different cove. You stand watching the sails shrink. You imagine yourself on board, salt in your beard, blade on your hip, a pouch of dried cod in your pocket, and the wind carrying you toward new lands. And then you imagine something else, waking in your hut to the creak of turf beams, walking the familiar path to the boats, repairing nets with Sten's quiet nod, listening to Eirik snore through another snowstorm, carving spirals on fish hooks and watching children grow bolder with each passing tide. Eirik joins you by the shore. Thinking of going? You nod. Still might. He doesn't press. He just tosses a pebble into the fjord and says, "There's honour in staying, and there's honour in leaving. The trick is knowing why." You sigh. Maybe I'll flip a fish about it. That's the spirit. Later, Holstein gives you a task. A walk up the cliff path to inspect the beacon tower. A fire platform used to warn the next village over of danger. You take it gladly. Solitude feels useful right now. The view is the same but different. Below, your village is small. Smoke curling from rooftops. Racks lined with fish. Boats pulled on shore like sleeping animals. Beyond, the fjord stretches out, leading to who knows where. You could sail it. You still could. But standing there, wind tugging at your cloak, you realise something. You don't need to choose yet. Maybe you never will. Because Viking life isn't about settling once. It's about surviving the tide, wherever it takes you. As you descend, a shape appears at the base of the cliff, Torkel waving you down. There's a seal stuck in the ice again. You smile, jogging to join him. Back to work, back to the sea, for now. At that night, the fire crackles. The village is quieter, but not silent. Laughter echoes from the longhouse. Somewhere someone is singing. Sten is sharpening a knife with the same rhythm as always. And you, still itchy in your tunic, still fish-scented, still uncertain, are warm. You close your eyes, and in your dream, the sea parts for you. Not to escape, but to guide. The wind has shifted. Not in a stormy, boat-crushing, you'll never see dry socks again kind of way. No, this is a softer breeze. It carries the smell of thawed pine, wet moss, fish racks that haven't quite turned into bird buffets. It smells like change. You wake early, though not by force. No pounding at the door. No Eirik muttering about ghosts. Just silence. A peaceful kind. The fire is still glowing faintly. Sten is already gone. You can hear someone sharpening something outside. You stretch, and for the first time in weeks, your muscles don't scream at you. Progress. Outside, the village feels different. Lighter. The season is turning, ever so slightly. You can feel it in the way the snow crunches less like ice and more like slush. The way the seagulls seem more opinionated than usual. The way the fjord glitters with the promise of movement. You help carry fish to the drying racks, though now the bundles are smaller, carefully portioned. Winter supplies have been rationed well, but spring isn't guaranteed yet. This is the lean season. The try not to starve stretch before the fish surge back in earnest. You know how to handle it now. You wrap the fish just so. You hang it at the best angle to the sun. You scold the goat when it tries to eat your twine. You're officially a local. Midday brings a surprise. A child, maybe 6 or 7, hands you a carved charm. "From my grandmother," she says, serious as a law speaker. "She says you've earned your name." You look down. It's shaped like a cod. On the back is a rune you recognise. Manaz, the symbol for man or person. But there's another etched beside it. Lagus, representing water, flow, intuition, sea person. You smile. The kid runs off before you can say thank you. Back near the shrine, Hulstein is tending to something. You approach quietly, offering help. He gestures to a driftwood bundle, fresh offerings left by someone anonymous. Bones, beads, a perfectly shaped stone. Some want their blessings quiet, he says. You nod. Like dreams. He turns to you. You still dreaming? Always. He smiles faintly. Good. The sea still speaks, even when we don't. That evening, there's a fire circle, smaller than a feast but warmer than a chore. Villagers gather with scraps of bread, hunks of dried meat, cups of mead that have more water than honey now. It's enough. Runa is gone, still away on trade. Eirik sits beside you, carving something into bone. It's probably another fish hook, but it might also be a dragon, or an eel with aspirations. Someone sings, a low meandering tune, about someone who went to sea and never returned, except as wind in the sails and dreams in the nets. You hum along, not the words, just the feeling. A historical footnote. Many Norse communities believed that spirits lingered, not ghosts in the scary movie sense, but memory spirits. The presence of someone woven into a place, a boat, a fire, a story. You're starting to understand that, because the fjord doesn't just take, it remembers. Or later, after the fire dies down, you find yourself walking again, this time to the far point, where the cliff meets the sea. The stars are overhead. The tide is whispering secrets you're not quite meant to hear, and you remember. Your first haul, hands blistered and eyes burning from smoke. The cave, its spirals still echoing in your ribs. The goat, always the goat. The night Runa called you sea child. The moment the fish bit you back and you didn't drop it. You breathe in and let it out. Not an ending, just a pause. Now as the village settles into sleep and the night air curls around the rooftops like a blanket stitched from stars, your eyes grow heavy. The fire inside your hut glows low, just enough to light the runes carved into the wood beside your bedding. Symbols of protection, luck, and patience. Faint cracks in the roof let in soft sighs from the wind outside, like distant lullabies sung by the sea herself. You pull the furs tighter around your shoulders. Your fingers still smell faintly of salt and smoke, but it's familiar now, comforting even, like part of who you are. You've survived the storms, danced with puffin-breathed strangers, eaten things that would make your modern stomach scream. You've rode into black water, faced stories older than bones, and somehow you made it through. You're a fisherman now, in a Viking village no map remembers, in a world that smells like seaweed and survival. Outside, the waves lap gently against the rocks. A boat creaks softly. Somewhere in the darkness, a gull dreams of stealing your breakfast again. And in the hush that follows, you let go of your thoughts, like casting a net into calm water. Let it drift. Let it settle. Let sleep come in slow tides. The fjord will hold you. You're home now.